What do you think?
It's amazing.
Dude, the steering wheel's got some nice flex.
I haven't stopped smiling since we got it.
It does have that shock factor, which is great. Either you're shocked that it's a Lamborghini, you're shocked that it's fake, you're shocked that we spent as much as we did on it. Okay, so as you guys saw last video when we bought this thing, all right, Ken, grab a rag.
Fresh air force, rip on point, peep the execution on a higher resolution. Now you gotta see me do it, now you gotta see us on it. I don't even gotta flaunt it, I'ma put us all up on it. Big tracks, jumping out the duffel bag, boys. Big man, got them big, man, I need some sad boys. Circa 90
colored car chassis lamps, otherwise known to normal people as underglow, for the Shambo. I think it goes against every written rule in the book to not put underglow on like a cool car.
And I think that's actually the opposite. You'd never put underglow on a cool car.
No, I'm saying it goes against. You're scaring me. All right, okay. We're done. I'm not sure what we started, but we're done.
We got this underglow installed. Okay, let's move on to the next thing.
Is it installed?
It's on there.
So we're basically missing a couple pieces that we need for the... Hibachi grill?
Well, like,
This is gonna be sick for parties and Ken grilling up some pancakes every morning. I feel like such a YouTuber right now. Like we're starting a content house.
Something like that.
Like we're not, it's not a content house, it's just
Metro convertible. And it is, well, let's just say the Metro was generally agreed to be the most. I'm going to review this ridiculous little car. Before I get started, good news! This Geo Metro can be yours. It is currently being auctioned live on cars from the modern era. We've sold McLarens, Ferraris, Porsches, but we also like the weird stuff on Cars and Bids, the quirky cars, and that includes this Metro convertible, which is live right now on Cars and Bids. So, add a link in the description below to head over to the live auction where you can bid for the chance to win this Geo Metro. You won't find one of these anywhere but Cars and Bids. I'll start with a little background. Back in the 1980s, there was the Geo Prism, which was a rebadged Toyota Corolla. There was the Geo Tracker, which was a rebadged Suzuki Vitara. And there was this, the Geo Metro, which was a rebadged Suzuki Swift. But Swift acceleration wasn't really a strong suit, but there was a benefit to this. The car was rated at 46 miles per gallon in the city and 49 miles per gallon on the highway, which is an impressive figure even still today. And drive it, and then I'll give it a Doug score. All right, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the Metro with getting in at Home Depot. That's what they were using for this car. Basic key for a basic car. And when you open up the door, look how thin this door panel is. There's no side impact protection in there. There's definitely no airbags in there. This was a different era, very basic car, no frills. Plastic panels behind the seats. You can sort of pivot them, you can see, and move it forward, and it kind of bumps into the back of the seat. So it might help you to put the seat back forward and give you more space, but that's what you do next. After that, you just lift up the top. It's a fairly easy process. One of these, and you're wondering how to put the roof up or down. Now, a bigger quirk than the actual operation of the top might be the fact that they made a convertible version of this car at all. It seems bizarre by modern standards because these days, convertibles don't really get made unless they're... You had a Chevy Cavalier convertible. You had the Volkswagen Cabriolet. You had a Toyota Paseo convertible. You had this. Convertibles were just a lot more common than they are today. And so as strange as it is to have an ultra cheap car convertible, and you might be able to fold down your back seats, and that creates like a pass-through from the trunk to the interior. In this car, behind the seats, you can see there's a little flap. You lift that up, and then behind that you can see there's another little, there's no trim, no carpeting, you just have two like vinyl curtains, and that is your trunk pass-through in this car. This was a very pathetic car in many ways, and one of them was the flimsy afterthought trunk pass-through situation. But anyway, since we're anywhere else, now the struts in the trunk are bad, so fortunately we have this handy broomstick that we can use to prop up the trunk. And as you can see, when the trunk is propped, this is a pretty reasonably sized trunk, especially for a vehicle this small. You have movable hooks sliding down the plastic things to actually tie your luggage down. So if you had more luggage than could fit in the trunk, you could use this luggage rack. This was a common feature in cars in like the 50s and 60s, not so today, but it was available as an option. And on the door panel, this was a big 90s thing, these sort of colored fabric patterns, just to make things more fun inside this car. And it certainly has succeeded. I, for one, am having a blast. Now, like I said before, not too many frills in this interior. It's handbrake doesn't look all that good. No frills, very small. That's your center console. Deal with it. And speaking of cheap stuff in the center, on the gear lever, you had the shift boot, which was just rubber. Didn't really look all that nice. Was certainly not as nice as leather in most other vehicles at the time. A 5-speed manual in here, no 4-speed. You had that 5th gear for better fuel economy and more gears for better performance prowess. It is worth noting, though, that the automatic version of this car was a 3-speed automatic, and it wasn't a very good one than the manual. The manual's 46 city, 49 highway. The automatic was 36 city, 39 highway. You lost 10 miles per gallon just by choosing the automatic. So you really wanted to go with the manual in this car to maximize your gas mileage. This car doesn't have power mirrors. If you want to adjust the mirror on the driver's side, there's this little stick coming out from the mirror, and you just move it around, and that moves the mirror, which is pretty common on cars with manual mirrors. The funny part is, over on the passenger side, there is no stick. They've cost cut out the manual stick. Instead, to move the passenger mirror, you actually have to get out, go over there, and adjust it with your fingers, which causes a bit of an issue because then you can't see where you've adjusted it to. So then you walk back into the driver's seat, oh no, it's too high, get back out, walk back to the passenger seat. Although I guess in this, surprised to see in here some nice stuff that I wouldn't expect in such a cheap car with such a cheap car reputation. For instance, you have an airbag in this car. Only one, driver's side, not passenger, not side airbags, but you do have an airbag in here, which would, so they weren't doing all cost cutting. However, the feature I am most surprised to see in here, the luxury that this car has that most shocks me, is air conditioning. This little tiny car has an air conditioning system. You press this button, you turn on AC. Good example is the owner's manual. You open up the pouch, this car comes with an owner's manual, but they didn't make a separate owner's manual for the convertible like everybody else would have. Instead, if you got a convertible, they gave you a supplement to the original owner's manual, which is a cool artist's take on the look of the Geo Metro convertible. By the way, two other interesting things in here. One, I love this emergency key that came in the owner's manual pouch. This car came with an emergency plastic key. And the owner's manual is the original business card from the salesperson from when this car was sold new at George White Chevrolet in Ames, Iowa. Believe it or not, that dealership still exists, but I bet no one there remembers. But let you know just how cool they were. That was the trend at the time. And next up, since I'm on the outside of this car, a few more interesting items to discuss. One, the tires. These are incredibly small, 13-inch tires with these hubcaps on them, and they're just so needed. It wasn't like this vehicle was massive or very heavy, so you could get away with putting on these small tires. I also want to touch on this ridiculous little pastel paintbrush graphic down the side. This is factory, and you can see it on both sides. Passenger side design of the logo itself. The world logo, I think, is supposed to signify that this was sort of a world car. Geo was born in the era where General Motors had a very poor reputation for reliability. Obviously that has changed, but back then it was the Japanese who had that point was driven home in the driver's door jamb. You open it up to see the VIN plate and it says manufactured by Suzuki. Like I said, this was a rebadged Suzuki Swift. The Swift was sold in North America, but we never got the convertible version. That was unique liter 3-cylinder that made about 50 horsepower. And it just wasn't up to the standard Americans were used to in terms of acceleration and performance. The trade-off was excellent fuel economy, and there still are people who are loyal to the Geo Metro. Now it's time to get it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the Metro Convertible. You know how sometimes you get into an economy car and they have some sport version or some convertible version, and you drive that, like the Fiat 500 drives okay, but then you get into the Abarth and it's like amazing. This ain't that. For one thing, it's just slow. It is dog slow. This car, it's almost unbelievable how underperforming it is. Geo Metro difficult for a rational modern human being to drive this and not feel a little unsafe, especially considering the car itself is so tiny. It weighs nothing, it has no safety equipment, it's just a joke of a car, and it's incredibly slow, so it's not like you can get throttle. Okay, this car just isn't much. It's just not all that fast, it's just not all that fun. To me, the quirkiness of this car comes in sort of, it was always scapegoated as being the crappiest car of its day. And driving this one, you can certainly see why. Even the convertible, the nice one, it's just so pathetic. Now, you know, they had air conditioning. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good. The harshness and the vibration of this car is also pretty substantial. I mean, they're usually a total disaster. This one, again, pretty well kept for a Metro convertible, but at the end of the day, it's still a Metro convertible. This car is kind of charming in the sense that it's like a simple little car, hydraulic steering, simple manual transmission. You just sort of push Geo Metro on the road, which at this point is actually kind of cool. It's like, wow, okay, haven't seen one of those in a while. And I will admit, this car does draw some attention. It's a bright color, convertible top. People are looking like, is that dude, is that a Geo? Somebody, I was charmed to it also, and you can't argue with almost 50 miles per gallon. And now it's time to give this Metro convertible a Doug score. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the Metro is sort of an icon for people who love cheap cars. It's not thrilling or exciting, but it is kind of a fun throwback, and it's just not expensive. Probably a few grand for one of the nicest Metros I'm sure exists on the planet. It gets a 6 out of 10 for a total daily score of 18 against other sort of similar cars I've reviewed. The Geo Metro convertible isn't great, but it's hilarious, and I'm thrilled I had the chance to review one.
These are two of the quickest, fastest, bestest, most dailyable, you name the superlative, it's got it, cars in the world right now.
And today is...
It all started with this. The 930 Turbo 911 you saw in the intro. A car that was known to occasionally spit an unknowing driver off the road, propelled by an The result? A 640 horsepower twin-turbo flat-six all-wheel drive weapon, which is arguably the world's ultimate everyday super sports car, the 992 Turbo.
And we say arguably because the Audi R8 exists. For now. Because the R8 and its V10 will soon be discontinued.
Which is subscribe and hit the bell.
Ultimate daily performance. All right, there's a lot of things that go into that.
There's maybe a little bit of road noise and it's a bit choppy over the bumps, but that's because when you put it in Sport Plus, it can do this. Oh,
It's quieter in here. And until you do that, because where the 911 and the R8 massively differ is at my foot, I have a Lamborghini activation pedal, which when applied, leave that legally on the road. So we're going to go to the track and find out. And as usual, we are absolutely not going to drag race them.
I'll give it to him. It's a good looking car. Doesn't matter though.
It's not all about quarter mile times, is it? Like, cars are, yeah, it's just part of the recipe. Cars are more than the sum of their parts sometimes, and you know, this is, I mean, that thing's going down, right?
Bye. Oh God, that hurts. Oh, my face is distorting.
Oh, he's off. Wow, that Porsche's fast.
Holy crap, this car is fast. Oh, and then we're well over 200 at the finish line there.
We have the opportunity to test these cars at their limits today.
Track time.
Now, the last time we were on this track in an Audi, it was the RS6. And actually on the Audi website, it says that the Audi RS6 has near... Good news is, this has more than 600. And it has a little button down here with a race flag. And when I press that, I go into performance mode.
It's probably the fastest car I've ever driven. See, third, fourth, every gear feels the same. But that's not really what concerns me. You see, the thing is that there's more to a car than to the rear to come around and you just get a little bit of that rear engine push. I do like that. That engine, 3.8 liter flat six, twin turbocharged. It's ridiculous. They're completely tame until it's not. Oh my God. It's kind of like John Wick. Subtle, calm, keeps to itself, doesn't bother anyone. But if you piss it...
The harder I pushed, the more the car rewarded me. And when you get it right and use the mass of the ends, a proper sports car. The problem is, I had to drive it like this to really enjoy it. On the road, it's too good, and the engine, while powerful, just sounds like an angry vacuum cleaner, which is why I think the car for me is still...
What makes Porsche good is the interesting balance of the chassis and the potential that across the lineup somewhere, there's a car with an engine in it that can damn near bring a tear to your eye, and that's what the GT3 is. And it's now, and watch this.
Does that fare any...
Okay,
yeah,
ready?
that's one.
That's one. And
minimal difference.
And there's rear seats, and there's actually space behind the seats.
Can you see your engine?
What do you mean, can
you see your engine?
What does that even mean? Oh yeah.
Feast your eyes. And this opens as well, so you can check it out even better than through the glass.
That is just so cool. I know. There's a wing and
look, the intake on the side, that high up intake.
Yeah. The intake means it's a turbo.
That means that, as the Italians say, it's a spicy meatball.
I think it's a spicy meatball.
I was trying to avoid that.
Okay,
I'm trying to be
yeah,
politically correct. That intake means don't mess with that Porsche.
You can't see the outside gauges, James. I just don't understand this concept. I feel like, am I missing something in the ethos of Porsche?
It's a buddy system. I can see.
I need you. Yeah. Okay.
Aww.
So Turbo S right there. That makes sense. Yeah. I would take these because these look fantastic. Speaking of options, here's an interesting one. Everybody in the 992 generation hates this little PDK gear selector, right? Because the standard version looks like a leg shaver.
Deeper than the 911s.
From in here, just from in here, I would take this over the 911. I think this is way more exciting. Like the steering wheel is full supercar. These like hanging down like adjustment things. Just the design of the dashboard.
I was wondering what you're going to name them.
Yeah,
well, you get exactly. There's no central.
There's no central screen. Yeah. So the Apple CarPlay appears on here.
Yes.
Right? Which is kind of weird, but also cool at the same time.
It's in your vision. It's in your vision.
No, there's not much more to say about in here.
Can I do a special
shout
out?
Okay.